This is a special program of AM 1160 WCCS 101.1 FM. Indiana County Commissioners Candidates Debate, Spring Primary 2019. Good morning, I'm Todd Marino. Welcoming all 7 of our Indiana County Commissioners candidates into our 1160 WCCS studios. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
And we will introduce them from left to right from my standpoint, and remind you as well that this is being broadcast on Facebook live right now, so you can watch the primary debate here, and also on our U92 Sports channel. Yes?
WCCSradio.com.
WCCSradio.com. You'll find it. You'll find it right there. Candidates in the studio with me here this morning. From the Democratic side, there are 2 candidates in the spring primary, Shereen Hess and Don Lancaster. Republicans, there are 5 candidates from which to choose, and from my left and going to my right, Bob Colgan, Robin Gorman, Maria Jack, Mike Keith, and Daniel Wilson. And each of these candidates has been apprised of the rules and the procedures by which we will be going. I'll briefly give you all a chance to weigh in on that as well. The candidates will be given 90 seconds each for an opening statement, and then we'll get underway with questions. We have some that we have come up with and some that our listeners have come up with as well. And we're going to start with the 2 Democratic candidates. If you're not aware of how the election process works in Indiana County, there are 3 county commissioners, and generally it involves the 2 parties, the Democrat and the Republican, no independent candidates this time around. And in the election in the fall, you're going to be voting for 3. So there will be 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats on the fall ballot, and 3 for which you can vote if you so choose, and that will help us determine which will be the majority party, which will be the minority party. The 2 candidates for the Democrat are Shereen Hess and Don Lancaster, and we are going to begin today having drawn the order for the opening statements in a random fashion. Donald Lancaster, you are going to be the first with your opening statement, and good morning. It is yours.
Hi, I'm Donald Lancaster. I'm running as a Democratic candidate for Indiana County.
Microphone is not working. Let's see if we can get the microphone working.
Hold on
for him.
one second.
Coming up over there.
So, okay. All right, let's begin again.
Okay. Hi, my name is Donald Lancaster. I'm running for Indiana County Commissioner on the Democratic ticket. And the reason I'm running is I see that we need to make some changes in the county. I currently work with, I've been part of the Indiana Borough Council for 5 years and chair of the Public Safety Department. And through my work there, I've started to get involved with different things at the county and university level with committees. And what I see is we need to look at revitalizing the county. We already have a really good palette to start with, but I see where we need to fine-tune it. We need to make it so that kids that are currently in school, when they graduate from high school, graduate from college, I'd like to see them have an option. Do I want to stay here in Indiana County and work, or will I go elsewhere? And I'm hoping we can provide enough jobs and enough of the infrastructure here that we can maintain having our children having jobs here, having jobs available for our current residents. And I'd like to see us develop this enough that we could also bring in people from outside of here that are looking for work, because the neighboring counties also are having a lot of issues. So I'm hoping to get elected as county commissioner so I can further what I do already since I've been borough councilor and involved in different committees. I'd like to take it more to the state level and regional level. Thank you.
Donald Lancaster, one of our candidates today for county commissioner, Democratic ballot. The other Democrat on the ballot is Shereen Hess. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Indiana County. Friends, my name is Shereen Hess. I've been your county commissioner for almost 4 years, and I have spent that time serving the people of Indiana County, bringing positive change to our communities. But friends, there is more work to do. In my second term, I plan to build on the successes of my first term. I'll work hard to bring more economic development and opportunity to all of our county. I'll work hard to ensure that the programs for our children and youth and our seniors and our veterans and our disabled people and those who are struggling to get by remain fully funded. I'll work with our state and federal leaders and communication suppliers to get affordable internet access to Indiana County. I will continue to serve on the Elections Reform Committee, where I will push our leaders to protect voters' rights. I'll continue to help young people and people who want to have a better life to prepare for work in the high-priority specific fields that are lacking workers. But also, maybe more importantly, I hope to work with the others to build citizens who can problem solve and analyze and collaborate and understand what it means to be part of a workforce. And I'll continue to bring opportunities for people to live healthy lifestyles and to work to make Indiana a place where people will want to visit, where they want to come into the countryside for its pastoral beauty and its tradition and its history. Indiana County has a lot to offer everybody, families who want to work here and retire here, and I look forward to sharing my thoughts with you.
All right, thank you very much. Shireen Hess, Democrat for Indiana County Commissioners. There are 5 candidates on the Republican ballot, and the order has been drawn randomly for them to give their opening statements as well. And we will begin with the opening statement of Robin Gorman. Good morning.
Good morning. I've spent my entire life working in the Commonwealth to champion job creation and economic development. I've worked hand in hand with the county commissioners, state and federal legislators, municipal and county leaders. I've worked with Governor Ridge's team to be one of the first states to implement the Workforce Investment Act. I've worked with business and industry creating jobs, retaining workers, developing their employees to be high-performing workplaces. I know how to bring community partners together, align interests, and unify efforts to accomplish common goals. I work with IUP, and alone for the 20 years, it's been like running a small community inside of a larger community. I've experienced being fiscally responsible, working with multi-million-dollar budgets, working with unions and contracts, and finding ways to cut costs and work smarter, not harder. I'm known for being fair, the person to call to get a straight answer, or the person to just get the job done. People ask me all the time, why do you want to serve as commissioner? My response has always been the same. I love where I live. I love being able to peacefully live my conservative Christian principles where I share pro-life and pro-Second Amendment values with my neighbors. I want to help continue Indiana County's economic growth, job creation, return the county to fiscal discipline, be an advocate for taxpayers by fighting against rising property taxes. I will be a full-time commissioner who will focus on Indiana County jobs and conservative values.
Thank you very much. And next will come Daniel Wilson, Republican candidate for County Commissioner. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Daniel Wilson, your candidate for County Commissioner. I'm a Christian, conservative, common sense, blue-collar worker. I have 2 children, my son Ryan, my daughter Lauren. I've worked hard all my life, 10 years in the oil and gas field, over 19 years in the Indiana area school district. Now I'm the owner of Throwbacks Resale Shop. We have a property tax issue, insufficient amount of high-paying jobs in our area. We have a broadband and cell phone service problem in our area also. Also, we have the opioid crisis. I'll work hard with our state representatives and senators, and whoever else can help us. One person can't do this alone. It will take all of us. So on May 21st, I ask for your vote, and together we can make our changes in Indiana County.
Thank you very much. Next on our list of Republican candidates is Bob Colgan. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Todd. And I want to say all 7 of these candidates up here are good people. We have differing views in how to get to things, but all in all, I think we all care about people. And I don't want people out there thinking that there are 7 people that don't like each other vying for one job. It's not that way at all. I would say some of the people on our committees maybe aren't so gracious to each other, but nonetheless, we all have our objectives. Mine has been, and what it was 4 years ago, property tax elimination. We do have an answer for it. It's House Bill 76. It's not a perfect answer, but it sits on a desk in Harrisburg waiting for someone to vote on it. And we were close to it a couple years ago. It got shot down. And it got shot down. And again, we've got tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayer dollars that was put into those efforts, and nothing has happened with it. Unlike the others here, property tax does begin at home. There is some that say that there's nothing you can do about it, and I can't rewrite that. But I can certainly push that issue. Just like last Monday, I stood down in Harrisburg with others and pushed and held firm to our Second Amendment rights. And those legislators really appreciated us being there. Instead of standing on their own, they were down there enjoying themselves with us pushing them.
All right, thank you very much. That's Mr. Colgan. Next on our list of Republican candidates is Maria Jack. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Renda, for hosting today's discussion. I am a lifelong resident of Indiana County with the basic Republican beliefs of pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, small government, and elimination of property tax. These conservative values always will remain in my decision-making. I'm a salesperson from a family of salespeople, always ready to promote Indiana County personally and professionally. My diverse lifelong experiences in volunteering and leading key local agencies, as well as serving as your county auditor, has provided me with the expertise for the county budget process. My experience with running small businesses for my family and other local businesses has given me the confidence and knowledge to manage effectively. Finally, my personal family experience in tackling the challenges of addiction has instilled a passion and drive to lead our county in battling any crisis, including especially the opioid epidemic. We've got to market Indiana County as was accomplished with Urban. I did this as a marketing manager at the Tourist Bureau, and I'll make this a priority again. A dedicated workforce is key, and I'll promote school curriculums, training, and educating our youth so we can fill jobs right from our own. The domino effect of that investment will attract new families, promote the growth of our tax bases, and bring more businesses. My slogan is moving forward, third on the ballot, make Maria Jack your choice for County Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, as we conclude our opening statements this morning, County Commissioner candidate on the Republican ballot, Mike Keith. Good morning.
Good morning, and also thank you, Renda, for giving us this opportunity to speak to Indiana County. My name is Mike Keith, and I am running for County Commissioner. My wife and I, Lori, have raised 3 of our sons here in Indiana County. I've been a resident of northern Indiana County in Rain Township for the past 35 years, where my wife and I have been married. We attend New Life Lutheran Church in Marion Center, and starting early, young and coming here at 13 years old, I joined the local fire company to actually go out and help my community. And I've actually been a firefighter and actually worked my ranks up through fire chief, a climber, for the past 45 years and still currently am one. At 16 years old, I became a medic for Citizens Ambulance, also to actually go out and help my community better. After graduating from high school in business, I actually started with a local company called Green Steel, which is located in Dixonville, Pennsylvania, and working for them / Polyvision for 28 years. Out of that 8 years, I was a plant manager and also continued my career in the manufacturing for 34 years, which gave me a total of 14 years as a plant manager. I've been able to manage budgets, actually been able to manage companies and factories as in the past. And now, as a Rain Township supervisor for the past 8 years, I've been in local government to understand local government, and I want to be your next county commissioner come May 21st if you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are our 7 candidates for Indiana County Commissioner. Again, 2 Democratic candidates, and there are 5 Republican candidates on the ballot for next Tuesday, a week from today. Now, a lot of our questions today have to do with issues that have become sort of buzz phrases during this campaign, as you all know, such as property tax reform, rural broadband, At this one, you'll have 90 seconds. And here is the question. How do you define property tax reform?
I define it by saying eliminate it. We need to eliminate it. I have talked with people throughout this county, everywhere. It is the #1 issue that needs resolved. The county commissioners cannot resolve it ourselves. We need to work with our state legislators. You heard Bob mention earlier House Bill 76. That will be reintroduced under a different bill this year, I'm told by Jim Struzzi. It did almost pass. We have to pass a bill to reform property school taxes. We also have to help our schools get their budgets under control. But school property tax is how county commissioners run county services. We run our business that way. So whatever it is replaced with, we need to replace those dollars to be able to continue running our services. Whether that's a sales tax, an income tax, a combination, we need to figure it out. If people in Indiana County are leaving us, they're leaving the state because they can't afford to live in the homes that they've paid year after year to own, that's a loss for the entire state. It's not just this county. If we're losing people, the entire state is losing. So we have to find a way to reform school property tax.
All right, so that was our initial question. Each of you has the opportunity to rebut. I'd ask you to raise your hand if you would like to weigh in on this issue. Mr. Colgan would like to weigh in. You'll have 60 seconds.
I just want to touch on what Robin said when she said we have to look into, how did you say, the schools, as far as the spending of the money of the schools. It's really not my job to micromanage these school boards. They are their own government. This is where people need to get out and run for their school board and take charge of it. There is one woman in particular that always writes nasty letters about school boards, and yet she has yet to stick up or put her name on a ballot. She's not stood up one time. She's very good about writing those, and that's out in the Marion Center District. Well, with her wealth of knowledge, she should step up and make things better for people. Indiana's had an ongoing problem with theirs here. Again, they are their own government. People need to step up and take a stand against this stuff. It can't be the commissioner's job to manage all that.
All right, very good. Mr. Colgan was, Mr. Keith does as well. All right, please, if you're going to ask to rebut, put your hands up now so I know where to go. Okay? All right, so Mr. Lancaster, Mrs. Hess, and Mr. Keith. Mr. Keith, you're next.
And we do have a problem as far as how taxes are actually broke down. For instance, 8 years ago, whenever I became Marion Township Supervisor, I wanted to find out where a tax dollar actually was driven from Marion Township. And again, one of the facts was 80 cents of that dollar went to school district, went to Marion Center School District. 15 cents of that dollar went to county. And Marion Township worked on a nickel to actually perform their services that they needed to do with their roads. And 8 years later, we're still working with that nickel, along with the other amounts of the dollar. So again, taxes are a problem. Property taxes, school taxes, and everything. And we actually not only have to redefine them, but again, we have to help our legislators find out where they're going to get this answer to help us manage not only a county, but other municipalities, not across Indiana County, but across the state.
All right, very good. Again, I'll rephrase the question or restate the question. How do you define property tax reform? Our two Democrat Party candidates have both expressed a desire to speak on this topic. And Donald Lancaster, we'll go with you first.
Sure. As county commissioners, we can't make the change, but what I see is as having an influence on Harrisburg. My concern is if we do eliminate it, and I say this being married to a person who's a tax attorney, what kind of things are they going to do to replace the funding that we will lose if we lose the property tax? And this is where I see as county commissioners we can have an influence, is that we need to make sure that if they make the changes, that there are proper ways that we can still get funding for our county projects, our schools, and other municipalities here in the county, because with us, the buck stops here. We're really tied by what goes on in Harrisburg and in D.C.
All right, and finally, Mrs. Hess.
Yes, property tax elimination is at its core is really about tax fairness. I sat in my office in my first year and listened to many heart-wrenching stories about people who were struggling with their property taxes. So I understand that's
On to our second question today.
Robin would have the final say if she wants.
Oh, Robin, you would, that's true. You would have the final say if you would like to rebut the rebuttals.
I'm not sure it's a rebut as much as I think we're all in agreement to some degree. I want to make sure my intent with the school districts is not to micromanage them. It is to work with them. It's to find solutions together. Shireen's absolutely right. This is a fairness issue. It's not as though people I talk to actually say, look, I know that we need to pay a tax to have the services that we need, but it's just that this one's not a fair way of going about it. So I think, ironically, you hear a lot of agreement because I think our county constituents are telling us we need to do something about this. It's just how we resolve it.
All right, very good. Let's move on to our second question today, and the first candidate with a shot at this one will be Donald Lancaster. And the question is this. Indiana County had a property tax assessment in 2015, and so it's coming up on 5 years since that assessment. When is the proper time to start a new tax assessment process?
My experience, I had lived in Allegheny County when they had waited for many, many, many years before they reassessed. They had the same problems there as we do now with the last reassessment. I think we need to be working on doing a timely reassessment, I would say at least every 5 years. That way, as long as we have this property tax, if you reassess it in a timely manner, people aren't going to be hit with gigantic changes. And that's where I think a lot of the issues come up, is we waited for so long before making adjustments. And I think we just need to do it in a more timely manner so those changes aren't that drastic.
All right, very good. And would anyone care to weigh in on this issue today? I'm getting some microphone interference there, and I'm trying to determine where it's coming from. No other rebuttals to that? Maria, you would like to do that? And Bob would as well. Okay, Maria?
I agree. At least every 5 years. I was a homeowner for 30 years, and it took 5 years for me to sell my house, and it was because my property taxes were so high, and they were based on 1968 values. So I know it's going to cost the county to do it, but we would just have to budget to do so that it can be fair across the board for everyone, and we just all get used to it, and find a way out of this fog of the property tax dilemma. That's it.
Okay, very good. Mr. Colgan?
I'll make it short and sweet. I'll save you $5 million because that's about what it costs. If we don't have an assessment, if we don't have a property tax, we don't have to spend that money. It's ridiculous. It's uncalled for. Property values should be set by the market here, by realtors, not by some company like Tim Barr had. That guy should still be in jail for what he did to this county. I think it's ridiculous. I say we don't have that. I say we get property tax elimination now, and that is my job as a commissioner, is to push our legislators, our senators, to get this pushed through.
And Mr. Lancaster, you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Pennsylvania is in need of property tax reassessment reform. There are efforts to do that, and I surely hope that our state legislative team will be on it because it's sorely needed. Thank you.
All right. Now, Mr. Lancaster, you have the last word on this.
Sure. I just wanted to say I agree with what everybody said, The key is for the voters to get out next week and vote in November and get your voice heard. If you don't like how things are going, like with this property tax, it's out of the county commissioner's hands. We have to talk to Harrisburg. And one way you can is talk to whoever gets elected here, talk to us, and we take it to Harrisburg too. If we work together, we can fight this, and we can change it and change it for the better.
All right, we thank you all for weighing in on that particular question. We are ready to move on to number 3, and Daniel Wilson, you will have the first shot at this question, and it is another of those buzzwords we've been hearing so much. As we move on to rural broadband, there are areas of Indiana County that can't even get reliable dial-up internet. Does the county have a role to play in rural broadband, and should it be the county's responsibility? You have 90 seconds.
I feel that the county could take a role in handling this situation. There's a lot of things that we could probably do. I mean, we're building bike trails and everything else. I mean, I think some of that money could have been worked towards our broadband problems or cell phone service problems, because there is a big problem with it. I mean, there's a lot of dead zones in our county. We do need to get them corrected. So yeah, I think the county should step up and maybe get with Verizon or a third party to get towers built to where we can reach everybody in our county.
Okay. Anybody would like to weigh in on that? Mr. Keith, Mrs. Jack, Mrs. Gorman, Mr. Lancaster, Mrs. Hess, you've all, and Mr. Colgan. All right, so we've got everybody. He doesn't want to be left out. Mr. Keith?
Rural broadband is a concern. It's a concern of mine. Reason being is rural broadband is needed not only for business to sustain here in Indiana County, but also to bring in new businesses. Not only that, it's a big key factor to our education today. We talk about having, being able to give our kids a better education. That is one way. Last week, Commissioner Ruddick had actually mentioned in Blue Spruce Park that there was a problem down there with a cell service not being able to communicate. Okay, under the emergency services, that's a concern of mine. If someone is in need of emergency services in that area, not being able to obtain them, that is. So we actually need to broaden that out. We need to get it out there. We need to find a way and budget conservatively to make sure it happens.
All right. We're just going to go to the person to your right as we address this issue, since everybody has expressed a desire. So, Mrs. Jack, you're next.
Well, I agree with Mike that we can't attract businesses if we don't have rural broadband. We can't educate our kids if they have to, drive 5-10 miles to their school in order to get broadband service. But we have to think out of the box and find other ways, and it can be done. I read an interesting article about a man named Galen Manners in Kansas who was offered to work at home for his job, but he had no high-speed internet. So he built his own broadband network and started a private wireless network. He rented rooftop space in a nearby city and then connected along the way to his place, and pretty soon his neighbors and everybody jumped on board. And companies like this, thinking out of the box, there's 2,000 of these companies in 50 states. So it's something that we can do. We can't sit around and wait for the big corporations to do this for us. Let's do it ourselves.
Robin Gorman.
It absolutely is the county's role. You're hearing that. Obviously, we have a responsibility to attract business. That's how we're going to create jobs, retain jobs, and sustain companies to stay here. The other candidates have hit on the other issue, which is it puts our our students at a disadvantage for areas that have it, for the areas that don't have it. The county is actually already working on this, so this is actually a federal initiative down from President Trump right now, particularly called rural broadband. That's the key in rural areas. To get us hooked up and linked with the kind of partners, as Maria mentioned, it takes a village, so to speak. So there's a lot of providers, corporations, educators can work together to get this done.
Bob Colgan. Again, I'll rephrase the question or restate it. rural broadband, there are areas of Indiana County that can't even get reliable dial-up internet. Does the county have a role to play in rural broadband, and should it be the county's responsibility?
Absolutely. The amazing part is it took how many years for commissioners to say that? If you get out of the office, you'd know what's going on in the outlying areas. There has been a problem in Blue Spruce forever, and they should have known that. You know that by visiting those places, and that's where a problem has been. You can come up with money, over $2 million in federal grant money for a bridge, and I can't think off the top of my head, probably over $1 million in state grant money. I'm sorry, actually it's vice versa. I believe it's state grant money of over $2 million. That isn't a priority. The broadband is. And as Mike alluded to, you need that for emergency. You don't need a pedestrian bridge for that stuff. This is how we misspend money. And I don't want to hear any garbage about we can't get grant for that. If you can take money, if the state can take out of the gas tax for the policeman's pension, misappropriate that money, then you can take money and use it for something more important.
Okay, thank you very much. Donald Lancaster.
Yeah, one of the things that wasn't hit on is it's also important for broadband, to have broadband for our agricultural industry. So much of what is done on a modern farm is connected to the internet. And again, as the other candidates have stated, we really hinder our students if they don't have internet access, because so much of what education is doing now is tied in with the internet. And as it was pointed out earlier, with Rod Roddick going out to Blue Spruce Park, you cannot get any reception. There's numerous areas like that around this county. And for emergency services, that just doesn't cut it.
All right, and finally, Shireen Hess.
Thank you. Yes, it's a sad tale how our rural communities across the country are suffering from a digital divide, and it has been happening over decades. The last administration had provided for some money through the Appalachian Regional Commission. The large telecoms took the money and ran that was supposed to help rural broadband. Now we do have some new efforts both at the federal level and the state level. I'm happy to say that we're going to be speaking with Governor Wolf's Office of Broadband next week, or actually tomorrow, and we're going to try hard to get some real solutions going here. It's not just about topography and density. There needs to be a political will to get this going. The new economy requires it, and it is a shame that it's taken so long. It's not for lack of trying, but it is for a lack of political will, all unified, and that's what we're hoping to do now. So I'm all for, we got to help these declining communities, and this is one way that is absolutely the county's responsibility.
All right, the
Thank
last
you.
word in this question to Dan Wilson.
Comes down to priorities. What's our priorities? What we need. We do need it, so we do need to get it done.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our next question. Let me press the reset button and tell you that this is the candidates debate for the spring primary election. The race is the Indiana County Commissioners. There are 2 Democrat candidates and 5 Republican candidates, and they will all be on the ballot next week to determine the November general election ballot. And our next question goes first to Shireen Hess, and the question is this. Do you have a single biggest issue that you would tackle as a commissioner, and do you have an actual plan to address it?
Economic development in rural areas this is what I've learned in my 4 years. It's extremely complicated. You don't have the infrastructure already, so you need to work with what you have. And that's why we started the Sustainable Economic Development Task Force. And it's meant to address and look at and use the assets the county has now. We have agriculture, and we're looking at agriculture of the 21st century. How do you sustain it? How do you bring new farmers in? How do you take what the traditional farmers know now, and in terms of soil health and air and land and water conservation, and turn that into an asset? Renewable energy. There is a clean energy revolution going on in these United States, and we started a solar cooperative. I'm happy to say that at least 8 folks have signed contracts to do solar installations. And this is part of the clean energy revolution. We're not talking about replacing our fossil fuel industries. Those are industries that build our country. We're proud of that. We're not talking about replacing. We're talking about enhancing, having a vision for the future, talking about how we can protect our air and land and water through environmental stewardship, which also translates into tourism and agritourism and recreation. Outdoor recreation is huge. And in rural areas, that is where you're going to get economic development. Outdoor recreation. Thank you.
All right. Again, that question is available for anybody else. And Mr. Lancaster, Mr. Colgan, Mrs. Gorman, Keith, and Jack, they have all said that they would like to respond. And so, Mr. Lancaster, you're standing right next to Shireen, so please do.
Yes, I'm part of the task force, the Indiana County Sustainable Economic Task Force. I'm part of the steering committee along with Shireen. And one of the things we're addressing is not only building on what we have now, such as the Urban Outfitters coming here into Indiana, but also looking at agriculture and looking at other ways that we can bring jobs into Indiana County. One of the nice things about this task force, it's not only people in the community. We're working with ICTC, the vocational school. We're working with Westmoreland Community College, and we're working with other entities so that when we try to bring and make changes to bring jobs into the county, we also can tell the companies that we're going to provide a workforce that can do these jobs. And I will point out that this is a bipartisan committee that we're working on. There are people from both sides of the fence, and it's doing good things for Indiana County.
Okay. Again, the question, and those of you who have chosen to follow up on this, do you have a single biggest issue that you would tackle as a commissioner, and do you have an actual plan to address it, Mr. Colgan?
I'd like to read you a text I got back in March. Hi, Bob. Just saw your interview online. I don't know if you knew, I moved to South Carolina. One of the reasons for the move was taxes. They are so much lower down here, I still don't know what to do with the farm. My kids don't want the tax burden, even if I give it to them. That came from Mark George. I asked if I could use his name before I brought that out. But what's to bring in as far as farms? Quit driving them out. Quit taxing people off their property. I don't mean to sound like this is the only mission I got, but in reality it is. Everything we're going to talk about today evolves around taxes. People's lives, jobs, shopping, everything evolves around taxes. And we have to push that through. And Shireen went through this 4 years ago. She knows what I'm talking about. This must be done.
Okay. Ms. Gorman, I believe that we're just going to go across the board here.
Good to me. So what I want to say is, I agree. My number one issue is taxes, but taxes is a part of what I would call economic development. So I like how Shireen introduced that because I do have a plan for workforce and economic development. And the reason I say workforce is because workforce is actually one of those issues. It's a byproduct of if you don't have pad-ready sites, if you don't have broadband, e-connectivity, and the kinds of things that would attract businesses to locate here to thrive and sustain, and a tax structure that would be accommodating to them, then you're not going to need a workforce. The workforce is part of one of the reasons that attract them because you have a developed, ready-to-go workforce. So economic development, taxation, workforce and economic development, certainly a key priority.
Okay. And Maria Jack.
I agree with everybody too. Great words. I was on the Sustainable Task Force also. It was a real eye-opener. Yes, economic development depends a lot on the quality of life here, and I know from marketing Indiana County regionally, statewide, and nationally that we look pretty good to other small rural communities. So I hope that people will have faith in that and that we can communicate together to work together and put together task forces that, as I said, communicate everybody what's going on and continue to attract businesses because quality of life is so key to that. And we can do this if we all work together.
All right. And finally, Mike Keith was the last of the candidates to express a desire to address this question.
Yes, industry. Rain Township, its biggest industry is agriculture. We have many farmers out there with large farms out there. Matter of fact, one of the supervisors in Rain Township is a dairy farmer himself. We hear this every day of how they try to sustain their farms and being able to grow. But the other thing is, we are an energy county also. We cannot forget that. We have coal, the fossil fuel that we're actually being taken and developed today. And also we the electric power plants that we have that actually are an industry in this county. But don't forget the Marcellus gas. If you would actually look at a Marcellus gas map of this area that it actually provides, Indiana County is lying right in the heart of that Marcellus gas. We need to bring industry in. We need to let industry in to go ahead and that will provide jobs and also provide a product that we can keep on sustaining throughout the years.
Okay, last word on this particular topic. Back to Shireen Hess. And again, the restating of the question, do you have a single biggest issue you would tackle as commissioner? Do you have an actual plan to address it?
A lot of this boils down to investment. Instead of trillion-dollar tax cuts, we need trillion-dollar public investments to address our human services issues, to develop our youth and workforce, and to fix the crumbling and non-existent infrastructure that we have going on here in Indiana County. It's, as folks have said, it's going to take everybody working together. Business, government, ordinary citizens. You know, elected officials don't do anything unless ordinary citizens push them. And I found that out really quickly. It is definitely those who use their voice who manage to get things done. Is that right? No, that's not how it should be, but that is how it is. And I'm really proud to say that I have not only listened to those voices, but we've been able to get some things done for our county. But there's a lot more to do. We need investment.
All right.
Thank you.
That is our question or that is the wrap-up of this particular question about the biggest issues. The next question, first candidate to have a shot at it will be Bob Colgan. And the question is this. With the governor of Pennsylvania calling for severance taxes on natural gas wells, the impact fees for counties and municipalities could be threatened. Can Indiana County address its road obligations without impact fee funding?
The best thing to do is get rid of that governor. That's the best thing. As far as the impact fees, you know, I think Mike just talked about bringing industry here. Well, we had industry here, but we managed to drive it out. And it was things like that governor does that drives those things out of here. We need to stop taxing businesses out of here. I don't feel that we have the infrastructure problem that Shireen is saying we have. We've got to quit taxing people out of our county, period. It's plain and simple.
All right. Anybody wish to rebut on that or respond to that question? Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Jack, Mrs. Gorman, Mrs. Hess. All right. And Mr. Keith. All right. Mr. Wilson, you were first to raise your hand.
I have to agree with Bob on this. We can't tax our gas services out of our county. That's what happened. The trickle-down effect that had on our county affected a lot of small businesses, you know, that the gas companies used. So taxing them didn't do us any good. You know, where'd they move to? Ohio, West Virginia, out of our area. So maybe we ought to look somewhere else instead of just hitting for the gas tax.
All right, Mr. Keith, we'll just work our way back across the room, and you also raise your hand.
We did drive out industry as far as the gas goes. So this severance tax, whenever he introduced it, he basically told companies like Halliburton, who was large in this area one time, Center Township supervisors, that was a big, that was bringing in money for them to actually provide for the roads and everything. And as soon as that was done, what did they do? They packed up their bags and they moved out of here. And again, we have local companies around here relocating rigs and stuff like that. They're not doing it here in Pennsylvania. They're doing it in Ohio. They're doing it in West Virginia. And they're busy all the time. But We have to let those people come back in. And we can do it safely. I know there's people out there that don't think we can, but we can, and we've proven we can do it safely. That will provide us jobs. Again, we're an energy county. Let that come in here. Let that come into the state of Pennsylvania. And let's go ahead and provide the jobs.
All right. Who else raised their hand going across here? Robin did. Okay. Mrs. Gorman?
I'm going to agree with my candidate colleagues on this. It seems like we can't seem to understand in this state that when we tax our most productive, when we have opportunities for people to come in here and have a resource that is our strength in this state and county, that we're immediately going to throw on a tax and a burden that we can't solve some other way and run them out of here. So we've got to learn. We start to tax our most productive people in this state. Agriculture is our largest industry. We are truly sending them out and taxing them. It is about investment, but it's about helping them figure out how to do their business better with the changing times, the culture we're in, the technology that's available to them, and investing in them to be able to diversify and do better, produce more, create more jobs, and flourish.
Okay. And on this side of the room, either of you raised Mrs. Hess?
Yes, just to say that every state around us has a reasonable severance tax, and I think that Pennsylvania could benefit from a very reasonable severance tax. An impact fee is just that. It covers the impacts. There's not much left over to do investments in the communities that we need. We're in rural areas. We are in need of outside investment. There's nothing wrong with that. We've been suffering for many decades. I see bright future, but we do need that investment. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Colgan, you get the last word.
Still on the severance tax, the heck with it, screw it. They get their tax when that gas comes through my meter at my house. To double tax me is flirting with the laws of double taxation. You know what? My kid and many of my friends have worked in these gas fields. Many of them have packed up and left. The heck with Wolf and his taxes. I'm tired of it. It's just ridiculous, the taxes they want to throw on things. We talked about this tax the other night. What was it? The $5 tax that they're trying to the per capita. I said I'd tear it up and burn it. I'm tired of the taxes. We can't profit and move forward. We can't do that. No insult to your slogan, Maria. We can't move forward when we're screwing people out of their livelihoods. So I say the heck with the severance tax and the per capita tax. No.
Okay, we are in the midst of our candidates debate. The county commissioners will be one of the questions on the ballot for next week, a week from today, as a matter of fact, Pennsylvania's primary election. And we're asking each of our candidates to respond to our questions here today. Next up, with the first chance at our next question, is Maria Jack. And the question is this. What do you know about Indiana County's sanitary sewer and water line shortfalls, and how many people are served with municipal sewer and water programs? Would you seek to go into areas that are not served?
Well, I visited a meeting of the Indiana County Municipal Services Authority, and it was very educational. We have some wonderful people on that board and wonderful representation with the engineering firm. And I know that they've been working tirelessly for years, trying to build the infrastructure of the small communities, the rural communities, as far as sewer services. And it is an aging system, and some don't have any at all. And again, to improve the quality of life in this county, to attract businesses, we do need to build on that infrastructure. And that is happening. As I said, I've been at the meeting and seen the things in the works, and we have to continue to support that and reach out to our communities to let them know what the benefits are of doing that, and just not to look at the cost and that they have to put out, but the investment in the long run will benefit us all because it will bring economic development.
Okay, who would like to respond to that one? Mr. Keith, Mr. Colgan, Mrs. Gorman, Mr. Lancaster, Mrs. Hess. Pardon me? And a maybe on the other end. Okay, well, that's interesting. Let's go to Mr. Keith. We'll come back to Mr. Maybe and then work our way back across the room that way. Mr. Keith.
Yes, as far as the water and sewage, it is needed. It is needed in Indiana County, and it's needed throughout. Right now, currently, through Rain Township, down the 119 corridor, we'll be going into Marion Center, Borough, and the school. A water line system is being laid, and that is due to actually start rebuilding that area. We have 3 developments that we have had trouble getting water out of the wells that they have drilled years ago, and they run out in the summer. This is a big issue, especially if you're one of those people who don't have the water. Now, with this line is going to provide the water and give those people the opportunity to actually have water. Not only that, it's going to increase the value of their homes. So we having that water out there, it's going to build and give availability for companies to actually come out of that area and start growing.
All right. Robin Gorman. The question has to do with sanitary and water line shortfalls in Indiana County. How many people are served, and would you seek to go into areas that are not served?
So I'm going to say this because I'm a woman, and a friend of mine who serves on the municipal board always says this is not a sexy topic to talk about. But it is actually sewer and water are the basic foundations to our quality of life. I live out in Brush Valley. We recently had water come through. At the same time, we were sort of saying, couldn't we save a little money and run the sewer lines at the same time? But here's my key. It is needed. It does increase the value of homes. It is another quality of life aspect that all of us appreciate having, and having it done the right way and not having to pay for when we have to do it ourselves. And that's, I guess, what I hear from a lot of people. I agree with my candidates. We've got to communicate better to our people, because a lot of people have put in their own systems and they're just fine with it, and they don't want a bill coming every month for a service they think they don't need, and then they're going to be taxed, and it's going to go up.
All right. Mr. Colgan.
Robin keeps trying to give me her mic. That's great that the value of your home can go up, and maybe you could pay a little more tax on it. Wouldn't that be great? It would be a good selling point for your home. The problem with the municipal authority, and I've dealt with Mike Duffalo on this through the years, the difference between a municipality and a utility is they shove it down your throat. They force you to buy it. And honest to God, if that day ever comes, I guess we'll see who's better in court, because you're not going to force me to buy something that I already pay to pump out of the ground that God gave me, this God-given natural resource. Sanitary-wise, again, with Robin, you put all this money into a good, adequate system that should be grandfathered in and untouched unless it's percolating up out of the ground. Why should I pay more money for that? The fact that the service is given to me to buy, I should have an option.
Okay, very good. Donald Lancaster.
Yes, I think if we're going to be developing jobs in this community, we need to look at that infrastructure. But I also believe that we shouldn't be taking it into communities where it's absolutely not necessary. We have enough issues in our municipalities here in the county, such as the borough, White Township, where we have infrastructure with sewage and water that needs to be redone. And we need to be able to help the communities that already have these infrastructures in place to be able to afford the upgrades and the updates that they need to have. And after that, we need then to take a look and assess whether these communities on the outskirts really do need them. If they do, let's provide them. But let's first take care of cleaning up, helping the communities clean up what they have now and the issues they have with them.
Okay, and Shireen Hess.
Well, I certainly think it should be up to the community if they do want water and sewer service, and a lot of the time it is. That said, we have a very well-functioning municipal services authority. We also have the High Ridge Water Authority, Central Indiana County Water Authority, Blairsville Municipal Authority, and Pennsylvania American Water Company. We are very blessed in Indiana County to have a lot of water and a lot of good, well-informed citizens running those authorities and bringing, really what amounts to a driver for economic growth, and that's a well-functioning water system and sewer, as I might add. And stormwater management is going to become a very big issue, and it already is, really. I think White Township has taken good steps to address the fact that millions of dollars of stormwater management work is going to need to be done. This is all part of infrastructure, and we need to invest in it, and we need some help in doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. And we started this question with Maria. Jack, would you like to have the final word?
Sure. Like everyone else, yes, I agree that the municipalities need to have a say in this. So again, let's communicate what goes on, how this process is taken and gone about. Our infrastructures are so important to us. I also sat on the stormwater management team, and there's a lot being done in this community that people don't realize, and we have to keep moving that forward. And understand, people just have to understand that this is an investment. I mean, my parents built a house on South 6th Street just down from the hospital, God, what's it been, like 40, 50 years, and there was no water there, no sewage, and they got the neighbors together and brought it down themselves. And since then, look, Brookwood has come, Forest Manor, Heritage, I forget what the other one is down there, but the growth has continued down that way. So we have to take a big picture look at where our needs are and go for it.
Okay, very good. And you are listening to the candidates debate, the Indiana County Commissioners race. The ballot, of course, is open. Next Tuesday will be the spring primary election. We are nearing the end of our time together. We have one more question of a general nature, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine some of the other listener questions that we have not had a chance to answer, and just let you pick the one that appeals most to you. Mr. Keith, Mike Keith, you will get the first chance at this one, and what I will do is I'll phrase them and give you the chance to respond. So here are the questions that we really haven't gotten to yet. Do you think marijuana should be legalized, decriminalized, or declassified, and should people be able to grow their own for their personal use? Another question, with the exception of urban coming in, and that story is unwritten, what will it truly mean for new jobs and at what pay scale for Indiana County? The debate of school consolidation and mergers is another one on which we have a question, and what are your feelings on that? And finally, the roads in our township are not good. Seems to be a case with a lot of townships. Is there a way for county government to work to resolve that? So there were 4 different things up there, and so I'll give you the chance. Which one would you like to address?
What do you think? We're gonna go on the roads.
Okay, you
We're
want to
gonna go on the roads.
So let me give it to you then. The roads in our township are not good. That seems to be the case with a lot. When I listen to the news, is there a way for county government to work with township officials with the goal of improving roads and infrastructure?
Being with Rain Township for the past 8 years as a township supervisor, Rain Township is not the only township or municipality actually concerned about the roads today. Let's face it, we all travel. And there was actually an act passed 6 years ago which was going to allow more money being funded for roads construction and bridge construction. As we have read in the paper in the past few weeks, that funding has been redirected to the Pennsylvania State Police. Now that money was to be directed to the roads, but they chose to do that, which means that we are still in Rain Township working on a nickel to provide better roads, better quality for the citizens. And we're doing that. But I guarantee if we would have extra funding, we can make that happen. And we actually did get extra funding. Tonoma Road is being reconstructed now under a consideration that was granted that we actually are able to go from 119 to 286. It's a 7-mile stretch. And by doing that, we are going to provide better access for our citizens. Now, again, we go back to the state police that are taking that 2/3 of that funding. We need that back. And as soon as we get that back, we are going to be able to do it, but the county will also be able to help out actually overseeing and helping us in different directions.
Okay, so each of you heard those 4 questions. You can respond to any one of those if you choose. Anybody want to address one of those? Okay, Maria Jack would like to. Dan Wilson would like to as well. Maria?
The one about
Which
urban
one would
and
you like?
jobs.
You would like urban and jobs? Let me give you that question. With the exception of urban coming in, and that story is unwritten as far as what it will truly mean for new jobs and at what pay scale, would you agree there's been nothing done with job creation in terms of big plants and development in our counties for decades?
Would I agree? Is that what?
That's what the question is.
Oh, okay.
Address the urban situation and
Good.
industry coming to Indiana County.
Okay. Urban is going to bring a lot of jobs to this county. This is what we've been trying to do, to increase our income tax base by bringing jobs here and providing so that our people don't have to move out of the county. They may not be the most glorious jobs, but they're jobs that we're going to be able to prove that we can handle it and we can do it, and it's going to encourage more people to come here to bring their businesses, which is going to encourage our population here, our residents, to want to better themselves. ICTC, a fabulous place up there. They've jumped on with the Workforce Investment Board, Tri-County Workforce Development. They're coming up with training. Right now we have the, oh God, what are those called? Those, okay, I can't think of the name of them. I have brain freeze. But we are training our people to provide for what urban needs right now. That's good because businesses are going to see that. They're going to see that we can do that. I encourage people to go up to ICTC and see what all they're doing up there. I mean, they have a great machinery department, 3D printing. You know, we're working together. We're trying to get WCCC up there. The Conservation District is building up there. It's happening, and we have to support this.
Okay. Mr. Wilson, you put your hand up, did you not?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay.
did.
All right.
I have to agree with Mike on, let's use our funds what they're put out there for. Don't be taken from stealing from Peter to pay Paul. I mean, it's basically what that comes down to. But I'd like to address the marijuana issue. I mean, I know a lot of people try
Okay,
to...
we're losing your microphone there for some reason.
I'd like to address the marijuana issue. I know a lot of people don't want to address
Okay.
it.
Go ahead, hand that microphone over to him, please.
Maybe I wasn't supposed to address that.
Okay. All right, so you want to address the marijuana question. Let me give it to you here. Do you think marijuana should be legalized, decriminalized, declassified, and should people be able to grow their own for personal use?
Simple answer. No.
We lost that mic. There you go. There you go. Come bring it back now.
No.
Okay.
I don't think it should be legalized. You know, we have an opioid epidemic right now. Why add fuel to the fire? You know, and that's what that's how I feel. You know, so the simple answer, no.
Okay. Anybody else wanted? Donald Lancaster, Bob Colgan as well, and Shireen Hess. You had your hand up first.
I'd like to address with the Urban Outfitters. I see this as a great first step. Working with the Indiana County Sustainable Economic Task Force and getting to know some of the people, the players behind the scenes. We have a person right now in the State House, Jim Struzzi, that was real important in getting that here, along with Byron Stauffer, who's the head of was part of the Indiana County Planning Department. We have some really good people that are working. They worked at bringing in Urban Outfitters here, and we need to work with them to help them bring in more industry. I see this as an important first step, and as others had said, getting involved with Westmoreland Community College and with the ICTC, I think we can make some good changes here in this county when it comes to jobs.
All right. So there were 4 questions on the board: marijuana, township roads, urban, and school consolidation. Mr. Colgan, you put your hand up.
Mike's right. Don't take our money for our roads. That's what it was earmarked for. That's theft. Dan's right. It should not be legalized. A gray area. If you have plants in your home and you sit and you want to eat it and sell it, I don't care. I've got better things to do than that. But when you're out marketing to people, then you become my problem. So from that standpoint, no, it shouldn't be legalized, and no, I'm not going to make a big effort to come after you if you're behaving yourself. You do have a right to do what you want to do in your home.
Okay. Anybody else that want, Shireen Hess?
Yeah, to follow up on the urban situation, it is a wonderful first step, and that story will be written. And the way we're going to write it is through our workforce development. And there's a lot of work, a lot of hard efforts going into that. Not only for the short term, we're working on it now, as someone alluded to, but we are looking at the long term.
Lost her again. Lost your microphone again. If you could, please.
Yes, looking at the long term, there's been some great efforts to co-locate the Westmoreland Community College with the Indiana County Technology Center, along with the Challenger Learning Center, and even the Conservation District, which does a lot of great work for the county in terms of any developer that comes into Indiana County needs to have certain permits and so on. Our Conservation District does a wonderful job in helping push those through and keep things on track. All that to say, when you're talking about workforce development, it's a process, and we've taken some really positive steps towards keeping that process going. And I'm really proud of that, and I've worked with my colleagues on that, and that's a real proud moment for us all. Urban is the beginning. That's what we think, and we're looking forward to many more bright moments in Indiana County. Indiana County is a wonderful place to live and work and play and raise your family, and we need to all, as Maria alluded to, we need to all work together, and that means ordinary citizens all the way up to the tippy top of the government structure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Mike Keith, you get the last chance at those 4 questions.
Well, let's go back to industry. And again, we're talking about urban and how they're going to bring the jobs in, and that was a great plus for Indiana County. But you know what? There are other opportunities here for us to take a look at. And as I had said before, history repeats itself. We have had manufacturers here in Indiana County, that have come in and gone. And so there is a recipe there. It's already been created. What we have to do is we actually have to go and we have to take the values. We have to take what we have working for us, put it together, and come up with the right ingredients. Once we develop those right ingredients, Indiana County can and will flourish again. I believe it will. Again, it gives the opportunity for our children to be here. They can help sustain this county instead of the elderly, them moving out of the county and the elderly being left here, to foot the bill. Let's face it, when you're on fixed income, you only have so much. And again, it goes back to all the issues that we've discussed today, being taxes, being able to sustain and survive. We need to look at all those issues and actually come up with the right thing, manage it, and make it happen.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to our final question. Each of you have had a chance to take the first shot at each of the questions that we've asked here this morning. So we'll go alphabetically for this final one. I'll give you each 60 seconds, and the question is really simple. Is there something that we have talked about during this debate here today that you would like to circle back around to and to take a final shot at that? And so we'll begin, as I said, alphabetically. In my high school education and my college too, Bob tells me that C begins before any of the other names here. So Bob Colgan, you are first.
It's the first time I was first here today. You know what? I guess I'd like to confront everybody on the one issue that people seem to want to skate past, and I applaud Dan for bringing it up here. But obviously, my opinion and Dan's opinion on the marijuana issue. We're commissioners. We're leaders of the county. I'd like to have everybody's input, because I got to tell you, I was a little disheartened last month when Fetterman was here, and I was the only candidate in any position that took a stand on that issue. So I'd like to know everybody's stand on that.
Okay. Second, Robin Gorman.
Do you want me to answer your question or his question?
My question is for each of you, please take a shot at anything that you've heard discussed here this morning.
I think what I want to say is all of the issues, as Mike related to, all of these things work together, and we need to figure out how we bring all of the partners in this county together to work together as a system. So, we talk about workforce. We know to bring industry here, we need certain attractors, we need certain benefits, certain packaging. We know they need workforce. That's not easy. Our existing businesses here need help to diversify, to retain their workers and not lose them to job jumping, because I think that's a fear. And we can't forget, and I call these businesses the staples. They have served the test of time in this community through good and bad. And just because we bring in new companies doesn't mean we need to ignore them. That is the way that we will create new jobs at the bottom and continue getting and attracting businesses for sustainability.
All right. And third, Shireen Hess.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to speak about something that we touched on very lightly, and that is the welfare of our children. Last month was Child Abuse Awareness Month, and we had an event at the courthouse lawn and the care center, and many other supporting agencies, including our own Children and Youth Services, were there to talk about how, as a community, we all can address child abuse, prevent it, and teach people how to know about it, and all the things that, including working with the court systems to address it. We know that if we're going to have strong communities, we need to have strong children, and that there's a lot of trauma going on. Just the other day, one of my son's classmates was killed in an automobile wreck. And not only is that a huge tragedy for that family, it's a tragedy for our community. So you get into not only the children's issues, but mental health issues that are related to that. Trauma is really a public health crisis, and that's something as a county we can address. Thank you.
All right. Next up, as we go in alphabetical order here this morning, is Maria Jack.
Workforce development, and that is a big issue for me as commissioner, and that branches out into so many things. And I remember about 5 years ago being at a chamber luncheon and someone talking about the Southwest Pennsylvania work ethic. I mean, we are a melting pot of people, and this is what has attracted so many businesses to Pittsburgh and all the surrounding areas, because we have the work ethic. We have to continue to teach our next generation what that involves. We are doing that. I know the chamber is talking about doing a soft skills program with the kids. There's so many ways to branch out and build on that. But most importantly, we have to communicate to our residents that they are the key to this. They are the backbone, and we have to believe and invest in this community because it's going to happen.
All right. Next for us is Mike Keith.
We have all talked about issues and topics today that actually is going to better our county. What we also need to keep in mind is we need to focus on the fact of working on the day-to-day operations of the county. We cannot forget that. We have to sustain what the county is right now dealing with and keep on those. The other issue is, as going through door knocking, I've heard a lot of, the southern part and the northern part of Indiana County has been forgotten. Understand that we are Indiana County Commissioners, and we have to work for our residents all over Indiana County. And we have to keep those people in mind. Their dollar is just as valuable as any other's dollar, and they need to be heard. So we need to keep these in fact, but we need to also remind ourselves that we have to sustain and keep managing what we actually, the day in and day out dealings with the county as it exists.
All right. Donald Lancaster.
Yeah, I'd like to address one of the things we very briefly touched, and that's the issue with stormwater. I got involved with local politics because of flooding, and thank goodness last year, I've had 4 floods in 5 years at my house. Last year we didn't get flooded, but their outlying communities like Clymer and Brush Valley had floods. And I'm part of the group. I helped set up the Indiana County Stormwater Educational Partnership, and it's a group of, again, it's a bipartisan group of different people and different municipalities working together to deal with these issues. And I, as a county commissioner, I would like to also focus on the communities, outlying communities, to help them help their residents deal with the stormwater issues, because we're getting more and more intense storms where we're having lots of rainfall in a short period of time. And I see this as a real important issue in our county.
All right. And finally, Daniel Wilson.
I think that everyone here is basically on the same page when it comes to the jobs in our area and growing, making things better for our county. You know, so, I mean, it just boils down to who do you believe in the most and who's going to be the most honest with you. So that's all I have to say. I'm a man of few words. You know, I feel actions speak volumes, so that's all I have to say.
Okay, it is time for us to get to our final statements from each of our candidates, our closing statements. We began this time together with the Democratic candidates speaking first. We will close it with the Republican candidates speaking first. And again, this is by random drawing done before the debate began. And the election, of course, is coming up next Tuesday. 5 Republican candidates, 2 Democrat candidates, and each of you will have 90 seconds. And according to the drawing that was held previously, Mike Keith, you are first on the clock.
Again, the voters, they're going to be given the opportunity next Tuesday to actually cast their vote for who they want to be their next county commissioner. I want to be one of those candidates. My experience in the past has proven good leadership and quality leadership. My background, as far as in the manufacturing, has given me the opportunity to give that experience back to Indiana County. Again, I have always believed that you start at the bottom and you work your way to the top, which I've done many times. And again, in local government, I started as a township supervisor, and I'm working my way up to actually be able to give you, the resident of Indiana County, the quality that a county commissioner can give. I ask for your vote, and I ask that you remember Mike Keith on the ballot. Thank you.
Okay. Second, according to the drawing, Maria Jack.
It has taken a lot of courage to step up and run. As your county auditor, I watched and learned the process for running the county from inside the courthouse. It was this valuable knowledge that encouraged me to take on this task. Well, that and the fact that I've always had to get involved and try to make things better. My father always involved me in his business dealings from a young age. While running Greenstill, he always had me working on a new business venture. Growing up with 10 kids, he taught us not to forget where we came from. My dad from Buck Run near Clymer, and my mom from Coral near Blacklick. We spent many weekends on our farm near East Run and my grandparents' home in Coral. I watched our small towns weather many ups and downs, from the coal mining and natural gas drilling booms and closings, as our small towns struggled to live on. My days with the Tourist Bureau had me marketing new towns, from Smicksburg and Plumville to Salzburg and Blairsville. I am so lucky to have met so many hardworking people in these communities who make this county great. I am fortunate to have reconnected with so many people as I knocked on doors and attended gun bashes at so many fire departments. It gave me the opportunity to hear what's important and confirmed in me that I want to represent you. I hope you are with me when I say we need to commit our leadership to teaching the next generation that we can continue to grow our county. I need your help to move us forward. Join me by voting third on the ballot and your first choice for Commissioner, Maria Jack.
Okay. Our closing statements continue. Dan Wilson, you are next.
We have the opportunity for change in our county. If you entrust me as your county commissioner, I'll be financially responsible with your tax dollars, be available to you so that you can come see me, call me, text me, whatever you'd like to do. Because it's going to take all of us in our county to make our county better. So on May 21st, vote Daniel Wilson, and together we can get our priorities in order and make Indiana County one of the best counties in the Keystone State.
All right. Next is Robin Gorman.
You know, when I started out and threw my hat in the ring, and I said, because I love this county, and I stepped up to do something about what maybe may come out as a complaint. And I've learned a lot, and I've learned that the more I go and the closer we get, the more I want this, because the more I can do this job. I'm experienced, I'm a professional, I'm a conservative. And I told my colleagues here today, candidates, that I really felt good about when we did our petition signing, because all of us are in this for the right reasons. We all love and care about this county, and all we really want to do is use everything we have to make it better. So I salute all of my candidates because today brought that out. So I am second on the ballot, and I agree with Maria Jack that all of these candidates that stepped up have a lot of courage. I think Joe Pittman said that when he did his radio address, and he applauded anybody that steps in to public office because it takes a lot of courage. So I've learned that along the way too. Robin Gorman, second on the ballot, County Commissioner, ready to do the job day one.
Okay, and Bob Colgan.
Robin's so generous throughout this whole thing. She keeps giving me her mic. Listen, from day one, from my interview with Todd, I haven't beat around the bush. My priority is the property tax issue. It should be everybody's priority. It's just we disagree on the process of getting it resolved. It does start here. You can talk with your legislators, you can talk with your senator. If they're not hearing from me, nothing's going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. I hear from the constituents, and I didn't have to go door to door to know that this was the issue. It is the number one issue. It is the issue I will attack from day one because I'm in that same boat as everybody else. I have gone to Harrisburg 3 years ago about it. I was in Harrisburg last week over the Second Amendment gun rights. I was at the KCAC Center, and I stood up and I took a side in an issue. I have done all that. I'm pretty sure I've got my point across. I will stand up for something I believe in. I will not let you down. I will not let it to the side. I will not promise transparency and not show up. I just won't do that. What you see is what you're going to get, and you betcha I'm going to go after it. Thank you very much. Please vote for me, Bob Colgan. Thank you.
All right, our next candidate, as we turn to the Democratic side, is Shireen Hess.
Thank you. Thanks to all these candidates.
Let's share the other microphone with her, please.
Thank you. Thanks to all the other candidates. There's obviously a lot of good leadership in this room. Friends, I've spent the past 4 years building partnerships, nurturing relationships, and I think that has served Indiana County well. Growing and thriving in our rural areas is really tough now. It's going to take a sustained and committed effort from all the way from the government to business to education to the regular citizen. I've worked hard to bring all those folks together. I've worked hard to help our county communities become economically resilient. I've spent lots of time with our human services agencies understanding the gut-wrenching situations that people are struggling with. I've gone to lots of grand openings and groundbreakings, very honored to be a part of helping to grow our local economies. I've collaborated to bring real savings to the county through analyzing our operations and procedures, and I promise to continue with that examination of those operations. I've toured many agricultural operations in the county and have learned firsthand the challenges that our dairy industry faces, and also have talked with young farmers who really do want to be engaged and keep farming and homesteading alive. They see it as a way to live their true life. I've met and supported resources for our military vets who are living history. All these issues are so important, and I think everybody that I have met loves their county, loves their country, wants to see Indiana County thrive and prosper. I do too. So I ask all the voters on May 21st, please vote for me, Shireen Hess. I promise to continue to bring leadership, experience, and integrity and a vision for the future to Indiana County. Thank you.
And our final closing statement from Donald Lancaster.
Yes, I got involved in politics initially because I wanted to see some changes in my community. This has led me to a really interesting path where I've gotten involved with various committees at county level and with the IUP University. And I see being a county commissioner as a way to broaden my effect for making this community a much better place to live. We have a fantastic palette that we're starting with. One of the things I always talk to people about is not only do we have the university here, we have a lot of good working people with a good work history. We have the 2 largest regional banks in southwestern PA based in this county. We have a good palette to start with. We have great school districts. I want to work as a commissioner to help build on what we already have. I think we could make this one of the show places for a rural community. And we have great people here as candidates that will be able to, I see, bring this to fruition. I know many of the people here because I've worked with them on different committees. So I would ask that you vote for me, Donald Lancaster, to be your next Indiana County Commissioner.
This has been our Indiana County Commissioners Candidates Debate, and we thank all of our 7 candidates for joining us here in our studios. 4 of you will be named winners next week, 2 on the Democratic side, 2 on the Republican side. We'll invite all 4 of you back for the general election in the fall. We wish the best to all of you. And we are very, very grateful that you were able to come in and speak with us and to our listeners about the issues that most impact Indiana County. We want to thank our listeners as well, who were very kind and sent in a number of questions that we have used through the course of this debate here today. The election is next Tuesday. Pennsylvania's primary election is on the way. We want everybody to be sure to cast their votes next week. Todd Marino with you, thanking you for joining us here. This is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS AM 1160. And